investment sense.
Right. That's why we work with an organization that we are not socially responsible investment experts. We are risk managed portfolio experts to create global diversification in our clients' portfolio allocation. We work with the people who are the experts, and we pick mutual funds that have the screening mechanisms that enable the fund to be called socially responsible. And those screening mechanisms are environmental, social, and governance.
Okay, so that's what we're going to get into next, is the screening. So how does it work?
Okay, there's typically 3 areas that the screener is going to be looking at. One is environmental, social, and governance that factor into the investment analysis and the portfolio construction. The other, though, is shareholder advocacy. What they're looking at is the board of directors encouraging being a good corporate citizen. Are they being socially responsible? Does their practices as an organization indicate that they are socially responsible? So it's kind of a top-down strategy. So that's part of the screening mechanism. Another part is what kind of community investing is going on with that company. Are they working with banks and credit unions in the area? Are they helping the venture capital of the area? And do they have a specific mission regarding community?
And so, sort of related to this, that I wanted to point something out to people, and that is sometimes it's not productive to completely shut an industry or a group out. So, for example, like the oil companies. Okay, so some people are angry at the oil companies for things that they've done, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't necessarily shut them out as part of your thing, because in a sense, when you own shares in that company, it makes you like a voter in that company. And it enables you to do things like go to shareholder meetings and to present your point of view. And so being a shareholder for a company like that can actually be beneficial. You can benefit a community by doing that and by being a vocal shareholder. So I just thought I'd bring that into our conversation a little bit.
I think the critical thing, like any portfolio allocation design, is to hopefully be working with a financial advisor who's monitoring your portfolio with you, and that you're spending time looking at how is the performance doing relative to other benchmarks, and make wise investment choices surrounding that maybe some tweaking needs to be done, that if you see that maybe the returns aren't doing what we thought they were going to do, we need to have a conversation about that and why is that happening.
So maybe we should talk about that for a moment or two here, and getting towards the end. So how is designing a portfolio as a socially responsible or sustainable, or I guess you should say both, focus, how has that affected the return and risk for investors? Okay,
again, if you do it from a structured standpoint and you're purchasing funds that are globally diversified, the risk component and the return component are not going to be dramatically affected as they would be if you are picking something that's individual, an area that's individual. Example could be windmills. I mean, we went through that time frame before, and that did not necessarily work out so well for many investors. There's many other examples that are the solar is another example of current sustainable or socially responsible individual areas, but that does not provide the broad diversification. My message is from this is that it still needs to be a structured approach that is very diversified and has a broad base to it and is global. We're learning more and more that it's a global economy, and that the globalness of our world, I wouldn't want to leave an investor out of that.
So, in other words, they should be investing, there should be an international focus to some degree related to your investment program. So we've talked about this before. I mean, so, for example, that just having a domestic and an international together reduces the risk of the overall portfolio.
Correct. And then if you add a component of emerging markets to that, you're adding more and more diversification to it.
And also, I mean, well, the emerging markets to some degree, there's some more risk, but there's also a more potential for a return.
Return, correct.
Because these are companies, in a sense, you're getting in on the ground floor, if you will, hopefully,
correct.
for some of these countries that are going to be emerging. Okay, but I guess for you, to some degree, this has been something of a new area. But what sort of returns, are they getting maybe like 1% less, or
right
is
now,
an overall return long
actually,
term? Or what do you
right
think?
now, in looking at the mutual funds we're working with, they're running very close to
Really?
all the other funds that are currently available, but that's a very short time frame.
Yeah.
I again, in preparing for today and reading some articles on it, for a lot of financial advisors, the SRI is a newer form of investing, and saying, gee, we have some historical pattern for the returns, I think is premature. I think that there's definitely a place for it in a portfolio, and if you're keeping close monitor on it with your clients, that gives you the opportunity to make changes when you see something is not going the way you thought it might go.
Yeah, so just make adjustments and
Correct.
sort of watch and see how the thing develops.
And I think it's kind of fun to see how this is all going to evolve. Yeah, what is it going to create, not only from an economic standpoint, but from a synergy and a community environment? What will it do?
Okay. Well, believe it or not, I think we've got a little time here. So maybe if you'd like to provide maybe a little more detail, or a little more, let's see, I guess we've got about 6 minutes.
We have 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have too much more to say about the SRI or sustainable from the standpoint of how it works. I think it's something that is a very individual choice of a client, and it's something to have a conversation with them about, to understand who they are, what they're wanting to create with their wealth. And definitely, as a firm that is a boutique and wanting to help our clients live their dreams, we want to be able to provide that type of portfolio allocation for them.
Yeah.
And we work with them. We continue to have conversations about it and ask lots of in-depth value-based questions.
Yeah.
To understand what's important to them.
Well, I mean, what's socially responsible for some people
could be
different for somebody else.
Absolutely.
So, so some people may have strong feelings about investing, like in a Seagram's, a company that produces alcoholic beverages or what have you, or maybe even wineries or what have you, and where other people may have totally different feelings about that. And so, again, looking at how these companies are defining what they are, and when you talk about like a Reynolds and Reynolds, that produces cigarettes, okay, but meanwhile they're producing a lot of other stuff too.
That's correct. So
and
again, it gets down to what is the definition of socially responsible by the company, but more importantly, what is it for the investor? How are they defining that? When they say that, what is it that they're looking for? And I've worked with 2 people now that I've actually had them sit down and write.
I know one of those people.
Yeah. Yes, you do. Write what it meant to them. What is socially responsible to them? And that is very helpful to know, because, there's a lot of companies that have very broad product lines that go from anywhere from cigarettes to craft foods, so it's a very individual selection on the definition.
Right.
It's a complex topic, Mike. Actually, when preparing for this, I thought, it's a topic that is very interesting to me, and I think has a place dependent upon the client's vision and goals and values. And it also is one that is a little murky.
Yeah,
because there
are these individual values.
Yeah.
I mean, and people are unique in their outlooks on these types of things, and their feelings, how strongly they feel, and so forth. And so, I think it's interesting mostly as a development and what's happening to us as Americans and how we view, and maybe I should say, because it may not just be in America, but as investors, if you will, looking at what we are accomplishing. What is our investment accomplishing? Is it really bringing the benefits that we're hoping to other people? And that's so totally different from just the regular capitalistic
right.
goal, because capitalism in general is supposed to be for the most part maximizing your profits, right? And
correct.
so
Yeah.
You might be able to make considerably more in some other direction. Of course, the idea is if we can get sufficient diversification and so forth, then it's sort of wrapped into the whole thing, and somehow it's going to produce a reasonable return,
right.
in line with what the other alternatives might.
Another point, though, that in my reading on this that I found to be interesting and is that people that are very interested in SRI tend to be very passionate about it, and they tend to hold the course. And so if the returns do not turn out to be as stellar as they are in the total global equity marketplace, there tends to be an advantage because they hold the course. They don't bail.
Right.
So that's another point.
Well, and that's a big thing these days, because with how volatile the darn stock market has been, well, I mean, there are an awful lot of people that have pulled out and still haven't gotten back in.
Correct.
And
well, you got to be right twice.
Yeah.
You got to know when to get out, and you got to know when to get back in.
Well,
so,
that's right.
Yeah.
And so there's that aspect. But again, for people that are investing in this area, to some degree, the returns are secondary. They're more concerned, I think, many of them, in again, what is my money accomplishing? What is it bringing to the world, to the community, in making things better? We've got about a minute left. You maybe have a final word of wisdom you'd like to throw out, or?
If you're interested in SRI, work with a financial advisor and take a structured, diversified approach to it.
Okay. Folks, we hope that we've given you something to think about. This is a growing area, sort of a blossoming area, as you gather. I mean, you've heard about tremendous growth that's happened here as far as the interest of investors in it. And so we hope that we've contributed something for you to think about in this process. And with that, I hope you can join us next time on Financial Insider Weekly.